What's up, everyone? Today we have Miss Ruth Ward. Now, she's a communication expert. She helps people become the speaker that they want to be. That's her website, Become That Speaker. Um, we touched on a lot today. We touched on basic communication skills, public speaking, when your kids entering into college, kind of how to get them prepared to be able to communicate and create the friendships and be around the people they need to be around. Miss Beth, what do you got on this one?
I really liked how she talked about leadership communication, how she talked about handling conflict, and then also just being direct and but also really kind. I really enjoyed this one. It was a great experience.
Yeah, me too. All right, we'll see you guys inside. What's up, everyone? Today I'm super excited. We got Miss Ruth Ward here, and she's a communication expert, which I think is going to bring tremendous value to our homeschooling family. So, if you could, Miss Ruth, just give us an introduction, who you are, how you kind of got in the communication field, and anything along those lines.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Beth and David, for having me on board. My name is Ruth, and I'm known as your speech strategist because I teach professionals how to project confidence, speak with authority, and lead with impact so that they could have the language that reflects who they are as leaders wherever they serve. I started in communication somewhat by accident.
Okay.
When I was younger in high school, I knew I had the gift of gab. In fact, a lot of my teachers would write on my report card, Ruth talks too much. This is going to hinder her leadership development. She has strong leadership skills, but she talks too much. And I never knew that talking could be of value until one teacher volunteered me into a speech contest. In fact, I wasn't even planning to compete in the contest. With a few days left, one of the competitors couldn't make it, and she turned to me and she's like, "What are you doing this weekend?" I was like, "I'm gonna go at this speech contest." She's like, "Great, meet me tomorrow and we'll work on this speech." She gave me the speech. That weekend, we spent a few hours walking in, practicing the speech, making tweaks along the way, and then the next day, I'm on stage holding the trophy as the winner of the speech contest.
No way.
That was my first introduction to speech and speaking. But just in case I didn't doubt, just in case I doubted my abilities, I went to the regional level and won there again. So practically, what did I do? I take that understanding and skill, tucked it away, and studied the most exciting subject that I could think of, accounting. However, I realized that communications is not just limited to talking with everyone every day. When you go into the workplace, your communication matters. And
Yeah.
depending on whether you're talking with interns, you're speaking with managers, you're speaking with directors. And in my case, I talked with senior management, even members of board of directors. Your communication matters and it reflects who you are as leaders. And so communication coaching came more of an accident and not intentional because so many professionals would reach out to me and say, "Hey, Ruth, I love the way you communicate. I love the way that you give feedback. I love the way that you're very structured in the way that you deliver your message. Can you teach us how to do the same?" And before long, I gave in. I gave in, David. After so many people asking me, I was like, "Wait, I'm an accountant. What are you talking about?" I said, "You know what? I think I have something going on." And because I wasn't as available to show up in all the places that the folks who meet me and want me to teach them, I now started a platform where I provide free weekly tips for everyone to help them polish their presentation skills, build the confidence they need, and equip them with the language that they should have as a leader so that they're effective wherever they are.
No, I love that. And our nonprofit, we focus on four pillars. We got education, finances, health, and then communication. For me, communication is the biggest one for us to focus on.
Absolutely.
Just with your story there, you said you had the gap ability that you could talk, you whatever. Do you think that's a trait anybody can acquire, or do you think it's something that you have to be just given at birth?
Some people naturally feel comfortable to speak, and I think having that safe environment where you can share your thoughts and opinion really supports and makes it easier for some people to speak. I think the challenge there is speaking in front of unfamiliar faces presents an unsafe challenge, at least in our head when we first have that opportunity to speak in front of others.
Yes, ma'am.
However, I think, however, the more we practice doing something that feels uncomfortable, the more we get comfortable, the more we take action, the more we build the confidence that we need to do that. And so you don't need to have the gift of gab. What you need is confidence in what you have to share and knowing that what you share is valuable. And then reeling in those thoughts that makes you think, oh my goodness, no one's going to listen to me. And all those negative thoughts that come
Mhm.
up in your head, it's really your body's way of protecting you and creating safety. Like, no, don't talk to this group. It's scary. But the more you show up, the more you're grounded in what you have to share. And then you speak to the individual, and not just speaking at them, but in a way that's meaningful to them. It helps to build connection and trust along the way. And that's the part that's more important.
So you think it can be acquired if you just
Absolutely.
that's I agree 100%. Now, when it came to you doing that first presentation at the speech, was that your first time ever delivering like a speech in front of a mass audience?
You know, I did grow up in church, and so naturally, as
Okay.
a child, having to recite poems or read passages in scripture may have helped me to gain comfort speaking in front of a large group of people. And so I'll give that some credit
Okay.
before getting to a point where I'm competing in a speech contest.
And then now, for me, I think our ability to be confident speaking in whether it's a one-on-one setting or a one-on-many setting, it really comes down to us just kind of finding, like you said, confidence in the message we're sharing and also being like grounded and understanding that even when we are nervous, like you just mentioned, it's our body trying to protect us. We can reframe that into being more excited to share the message. Now, what would you say to the home? Because we talk to homeschooling families. That's who we're speaking to right now. Now, what would you say to a homeschooling parent who's like, hey, maybe I want to get my kid inside something like Toastmasters or something somewhere they're going to be presenting to a lot of people. How would you best prepare them as a parent to go ahead and conquer their fear and get going and being comfortable speaking in front of a lot of people?
That's a great question, David. You know what I'd say? One word, start.
I love it. I love
Start. Show up. And the beautiful thing about spaces like Toastmasters, they provide safety.
it.
So
Hmm.
there's nothing that you could say that could be wrong. It creates that opportunity for you to mess up so that as you polish that skill and you go into the real world and you have to talk to someone who's interested in something that you have to offer, or you're talking to an executive, an expert of that sort, it gives you that practice ground so that when you go into those moments that you show up as if you've been doing it all along. But start,
It's
and
the only way for you to learn.
give yourself permission to be imperfect. You're there to learn and grow, and that's the beauty of learning any skill.
Without a doubt. And now that's one on many. Now, when it comes to one-on-one communication, like you said, even in a business setting, you may be talking to a board of directors, maybe you're talking to a high executive. What can families do to gain that confidence just in the one-on-one and prepare their kids for the professional setting, which they're all going to be going into eventually, to where they can speak with confidence, they can talk to a higher level executive, or maybe they're just going into a job interview and understand how to build rapport, how to connect, but also how to speak clearly and confidently.
Absolutely. One of the things that I would encourage them to remember that they're talking to a person. No
Mm.
matter what their level is, they probably have a family. They probably have something that they're interested in. They grew up somewhere. And the more you see them as a person and ask questions to be curious about who they are, doing the homework also to look them up, they're interested in, who they are, it gives you topics that you could speak to that would naturally connect with that person. And everyone loves to talk about the things that they enjoy. Everyone loves to talk about the things in their life that they like and who
Uh-huh.
they are to others. And being able to think about what those topics or those areas of interest are to that individual will help you bridge the connection to them from a personal level. And then from a professional level, being prepared is probably one of the best things that you can do. It shows that you have initiative and you have a genuine interest in whatever it is that you're interested in. Oftentimes, people come to, let's say, interviews or talking to someone and be like, David, tell me about the homeschooling program. Well, there's a whole website. There's ways to look up David and see what it's about. Think about the four pillars. And now having that as different data points, I can now strike a conversation that shows, hey, I noticed that you guys did X, Y, and Z. I did something like that. And they thought, wow, I could make a connection with this person in that way.
Mhm.
Those are two quick ways in which you could build rapport quickly and then connect with the person. And then remember that remember to focus on them more than yourself. I think that's one of the challenges that individuals have in making connection with others. They talk about, oh, let me tell you about who I am and what I offer. And you'll find it much easier, I would say, to think about them, ask questions, and then bridge the connection afterwards.
I love that. And that was honestly the number one thing for me when I was starting my business and I started diving deep into like communication because I've always been able to talk, but learning to ask questions about the other individual just like was like a light bulb moment in my head that it was like, wow, this is so easy actually. All I have to do is just ask a question and then I'm controlling the conversation really, but they're speaking more than I am. So it was like a that asking questions was like my light bulb moment. And I love what you said about the preparation. That's something that I think no matter what situation you're going into, even having a little preparation beforehand is going to give you that ability to kind of walk in a little more confident, a little more grounded, understanding that, okay, well, at least I have my talking points. I know in this day and age, a simple Google search or Instagram search, you can pretty much gauge who you're talking to right away. So I love what you said there about having that preparation. Now let's go into more of like a personal encounter, like just everyday situation. Let's say a kid's playing in the local rec league and they're going to the first team practice, you know. What can you provide for the parents of getting them ready to go into this new situation, these new people, and still find confidence and still maybe have some things in the back of their mind for them to be able to communicate confidently and get to know all the people they're going to be surrounded around.
Absolutely. I would say first, be confident with who you are and what you stand on.
Yes, ma'am.
Sometimes we have our own internal messages where we tell ourselves, oh, they're going to think I'm weird because I'm a part of a homeschool program, or they might think that I don't have all the skill sets or knowledge that maybe someone else who's in a different environment has. So I want you to first work on what are those inner thoughts that you're telling yourself before you even get on the field or you meet that individual.
Hmm.
And then instead take those thoughts and think about the value that you provide. Everyone, no matter how old you are, where you're from, there's something interesting about you and what you provide wherever you are. And going back to seeing that other person as an individual, think about the things that you're interested in and how do I find a way of connecting with them on something that we both have an interest in. That's a natural way to build relationships. And that's the thing that you would look for. And in finding that interest, also being able to shape the narrative, right? So someone might meet you and they have their own perception, impression of you, and you being able to share, oh, this is what we do, here's what we're learning, or this is something that I'm interested in. You get to shape the narrative of whatever that person thinks or have knowledge or perceive of you by sharing that information up front and well not don't bombard them now but sharing that information as you build relationship with. But first you have to be grounded in who you are, the value that you provide. Think about something that you naturally have an interest in. Think about the natural human connection. That's how you will build that relationship quickly, by building trust and finding similarities there, and then have fun in the process. This communication does not have to be this rigid, here's a couple of steps to take and follow. Be flexible, have fun with it, be yourself, right? In everything, it's not about mimicking, oh, this person sounds well, and the way that they deliver their messages as well. Like, I want to sound like them. Sound like you.
Yep.
There's enough space for just you in the world. Sound like you and be you in the process.
I love that. And I think that we all have our own quirks that make us who we are and our ability to kind of just own them and just be comfortable with them. It's part of I can look at my friend group and I have friends from every different type of walk of life. You know what I mean? Every different background growing up. And the reason I like them is because each one of them is different, but they own who they are. Whether it's someone who's just super introverted that, just kind of wants to hang out with you, someone that's super extroverted that always wants to be the life of the party. But I like them because they are who they are and they don't try to morph and change into the situation. They're themselves. They're a little quirky. A lot of them, you know what I mean, are dorks, but I like them because of that reason. So I think our ability to, like you said, just be ourselves and be comfortable being ourselves is a great thing that families should really focus on, especially with their kids. That, hey, look, maybe you have one kid who's super extroverted and the other one's super introverted. They can both communicate at the same level. They're just going to be doing it a little bit differently.
Differently.
When,
Yes.
now, when it comes to, as homeschoolers, especially, I feel not even just homeschoolers, anyone, our cap on life is the way we can communicate. Our ability to communicate is going to be how far we can succeed in this world. And a lot of times there's a misconception that homeschoolers are socially awkward, and there are some cases where that's very true. But how do we, if we have a homeschool kid, he's shy and he's maybe afraid of being himself, what are some things parents can maybe do, or maybe some things to talk to the kid about to get them to really own their personality and become confident in who they are and how they're made?
Great question. I like that one. I would say I like the point that you brought up earlier about you have more than one kids and they have different styles of communication. One might be more willing to ripple off multiple words in a sentence, where the other one might be a little bit more thoughtful, may hold back, and then speak when necessary for them. And I think the first thing to do is understand a child and the fact that they may be different, understanding their style. If they're shy, I would say just asking the questions to feel them out of what is it that they're observing or feeling or sharing, what's going on in their mind. And
Mhm.
it could be that they're looking for safety before they could relax and open up. It could be that the environment is overstimulating and it's not an area that they want to show up in. But first, understanding the child is a good starting point to understand what is it that they're feeling, seeing, experiencing, and what can I do to change that environment so that it's easier for them to come out and explore. It could be that they are gravitated to certain activities and others that they aren't.
Mhm.
I think it comes back to understanding the child. And I would say this quick story, believe it or not, in fourth grade, I would always, I didn't know it was a thing, but I was like very observative and very quiet in a new environment. And my fourth grade teacher would go to my mom and say, Ruth is so quiet. Like, I don't understand. She barely talks. My mom is like, give her a chance. She'll open up. And then before the end of the school year, my teacher is like, we can't get Ruth to shut up. So every child is different. Knowing your child, understanding them, and seeing maybe the shifts that you need to make in the environment to allow them to feel free to be themselves.
I love that. I love that. Now, when it comes to, we're going to speak to the young ladies here. Now, when they're entering into the work field, a lot of times, whether it's even true in the situation or it's not true in the situation, I feel like there's a tension of a young lady trying to not assert her dominance, but like make her presence known in a good way to where she can feel confident, even if she's talking to, let's say, the man who owns the company, or she's talking to someone she's trying to make a sale. Speaking to the young ladies, what are some things they can do when they're entering into the professional field to understand that they're just as valuable, they're just as, I guess, valuable and right to be there as anybody else? I don't know if my question's making sense there.
Yes, I
Okay.
know. I know where you're staring into that direction.
Okay.
I would say that kindness goes a long way. And I know historically we've adopted this. If I'm going to be a leader, I need to sound and look and behave like the patterns that I've observed others display. And that's not necessarily the case. What's more important is going back to, how do I connect with this individual in a way that resonates with them? And one of the things that I like to do is to genuinely find something that that person does well
Mm,
and to compliment them and to identify as like, I love the way that you led that meeting. It was very clear, it was very concise, and you've given me a pattern to follow. People love to hear the things that they're doing well and to know that you're interested in also learning in that environment. They're willing to help and lead you accordingly. That way you don't have to necessarily be, oh, I want to be the one in charge and everyone you just got to do what I say to do and be that forward. I think going back to the point of how do you want how do you want people to remember you by the way that you treat them? And that has a lot to do with the words that you say as well as your demeanor at the end of the day. And along the work career progression, when you enter into the workplace, what's more important is not necessarily the title that you hold, but the person who you are and how you operate it in challenging environments and easygoing environments as well. Because that's the part of you that people will remember no matter what your title is. For example, I was introducing a former manager who's now an executive to someone else in my network, and I connected them, and he's like, Ruth, you don't know this, but I was a new hire, and you were the first person who greeted me and was kind to me and was talking to me. You don't know this, but I always remember you that way.
There you go.
He's an executive somewhere, and because of that, he's like, yeah, if Ruth's involved, I'm willing to get involved in this. So the thing, I think what's more important is it's the impact that you make by the person that you are. Now, with that, you need to find your voice and not
Mhm.
say like this, I have something to say, but your body needs to show that you're grounded and confident in whatever value that you have to share. And that will come the more you practice your communication skill and having confidence in your value that you contribute. And so when you're in a room with no matter who the titles are, knowing that you belong there. And because you're in a room, that your value matters. So I don't want
Mhm.
you to shrink. And I don't want you to be like, oh my goodness, I'm in the room with all these big executives. But to take space, take up space in that room, ask the questions that aren't clear. And if anything, find the patterns and not quite templates, but there's phrases that you could use to cushion and deliver your message in a way that's helpful, that doesn't show or seem that that pulls away from you being nervous or timid or shy or don't know what you're talking about and make it sound more curious, wanted to confirm, can you further explain? I may have missed this. Really provides the framework to help you do that well. So as a woman in the workplace, who you are matters. Continue to work on the communication that you need to deliver the information that you need to without having to shrink. Take up space wherever room that you're invited and you are, no matter what title you are. And your message, your input definitely matters.
Love it. I love it. Now, when you touched on a couple things there, like your body language and all, can you just kind of touch on the how would you like explain or how can you don't want to be standing there like all like I guess like trying to be the most biggest baddest person in the room, but can you just touch on like what's proper body language? How do you work on it? How do you become aware of it when you're in those settings? And just kind of give like a little bit of a framework for people to operate under so they can understand like what's the proper way to hold myself? What's the right tonality to speak at? What's the right words to use and kind of be conscious of everything when they're in those situations.
Great. Your body speak before you open your mouth, right? And your body either confirms or negates whatever you're saying. For example, if I'm like this and I'm like, yeah, David, that's so exciting. My body is saying something different than what my words say.
Without a doubt.
And oftentimes, and I like that you say just things to be mindful of when we walk into our rooms, if we're timid, if we're not like sure of ourselves, our body tends to reflect that and we'd be like,
Hmm.
we do certain things that we aren't aware of. So if you're in a room, if you are going to a meeting, if you're entering to a space, give yourself a check before you leave. Let's say you're in the car, start with the car, breathe deeply, breathe slowly. I like to do the breathe in 3 times, hold it 3 seconds, and then exhale. That naturally brings down your heart rate, allows you to breathe and think slowly. But check yourself in the car or in the house before you leave. And when you walk out, make sure your shoulders are back and relaxed. Your posture matters. Um, you have a smile on your face and make it genuine. If you're not a smiling person, then don't, okay, it's okay. You don't have to be a smiling person, right? But make sure that whatever it is that you want people, like what is it that you want people to feel and sense because they've run into you or they passed by you, right? You want them to think I'm pleasant, you want them to think I'm cooperative, you want them to think, oh, I want to meet that person, they seem cool, something about them is drawing me to them. Think about that image you want and then do a sense check. What is my body saying? What is my facial expression saying? And then show up in that way. And think about the outcome, right? What outcome do you want? I want to feel excited. I want to be attentive. I want to be interested. Whatever it is that you want your outcome to be, think about embodying that so that wherever room you are in, whatever you're doing is reflecting that thought from within. Your hands matter, right? And so the more you talk, if you talk like this all the time and your hands are in your mouth or you do this, things to be aware of because your mouth is one of the communication channels. You want to make sure that you're not blocking that when you're talking. And for the most part, allow your gestures and your hand movements to amplify certain words that you're saying. And if you don't know what to do with them, you could just keep them in front of you
I'll
together.
move my hand.
That
I have it on my face.
well, you're thinking right here. So you're thinking. But when you're speaking, right, just be mindful of where your hands are. If I would not recommend that you put your hands in the pocket because that's the signal that you're nervous or uncomfortable. So make sure your hands are out and in front or in a comfortable position. And your tone, whenever you speak, and I struggle with this sometimes because I'm used to talking one-on-one, and then when I have to talk in bigger audience, I have to remind myself to project my voice. And so I'll give you the Whitney Houston line that I heard her say one time. And she said something along the lines that when she's in a concert, she likes to sing as if she's talking to the person at the back of the auditorium so that they have the same experience of the person in front. And I like that concept because sometimes we forget that there are people in the back trying to hear us. And if we could project our voice long enough, loud enough for them to hear, then we know we covered the room. So
Love it.
that's something to consider and think about with your body posture. Be mindful of what's going on in here because it definitely reflects. And then doing a sense check because sometimes during a meeting, like you're in a long meeting in a classroom and a long lecture, sometimes you'll be like, okay, when is this person gonna be quiet? And just having a mental like check for yourself. Hey, how's my body posturing? Who do I want to be? Okay, I want to show up like this. Okay. And this,
And
mind yourself.
I love it. And that is kind of what you meant by having a presence, correct? When you were saying that
Correct.
earlier? Okay. Um, Now when
David,
it
can I interrupt real quick?
yeah, you don't have to ask permission.
Okay.
You can jump in. Beth, jump in.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
I'm gonna jump in. I just wanted to ask, what do you think? I have my bachelor's in communication, so this is awesome. And I just wanted to say, like, how do you think social media, AI, the digital age that we live in will impact communication or is already impacting communication?
It has already impacted communication. I would say one thing, it has made messaging even more concise and intentional because you're watching and you have access to multiple videos. And so the first few seconds becomes more important because you have the ability to attract and retain, your ability to attract and retain your audience attention is much more, it has much more weight than if you're in person. If you think about like in your room or a classroom, for example, you have a teacher talking to you, you can't swipe your teacher out and be like, next person. Like you have to be present and talk to them. Whereas when you're on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube or whatever the case may, you have to be a lot more thoughtful of how quickly can I gain their attention and keep it. Now, with that could come some gimmicky ways of doing that, and people try to be more outlandish to, hey, I got your attention, and to keep it. And sometimes that makes your communication less authentic. But but I think then there's still that intentional way of having to connect and attract and retain your audience attention. Also, with the advent of AI, it seems like there's a lot more dependence on what does AI say or how do I say it this way? I think after a while we rely so much on AI, it sounds all the same and you lose a little bit of authenticity.
Oh yeah.
So it
Yep.
comes back to making sure that you still have that skill set. You can rely on those tools to help amplify your message.
Mhm.
But the more you are equipped with how to speak and connect with people, I think the connection part is super important because everyone has something to say. Everybody wants something to say with their podcasts and their platforms. But when you're able to connect with your audience and have a lasting impression on them, you will stand out every day, all day
That's right.
on social media. And also with that, I think is being able to be consistent because you could show up one way in social media, but in person, you'd have to be that person. And
Yeah.
kind of weird to have to be like, let me see what the AI says for me to respond. That's you're talking to that person. Like you have to show up and
That's right.
be and connect with them, and
Yeah.
you need that personal skill set still.
Yeah.
But yes, it has impacted the way that we communicated. Definitely, you have access to more people. Have to change how you go about connecting and retaining their information, but still the authenticity is important. And having that skill for yourself is what I think in the long run will make you stand out because everyone will sound the same after a while.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
No
Go ahead,
follow
David.
Well, I think so too, like you said, that with the AI, even when it comes to writing text messages, I can always tell if somebody like put it through like an AI. And I was like, eventually it's just going to be where people are just AIs just talking to each other, and the humans are just kind of like the middleman sending the message. I think it's super, super valuable to have your own authentic voice within it, to where even if it's me talking to one of my customers, like I feel like there's something more real about me using my even I mean you can ask Miss Beth. I can't spell, my grammar's terrible. Like it's just who I am. But I feel like that's more real when I'm talking to my customers than if it was like, okay, I'm gonna send this message, let me use ChatGPT to polish it first, compared to now if I'm gonna send like professional email or something, obviously I'm gonna spell check and make sure it's all there. But I feel like it's more me if I use the wrong there when I'm talking. You know what I mean? Like they know me, they kind of understand it on their end. I don't think they're gonna be judging me, so to speak, compared to if I send this like perfectly spelled text message that is just like, oh, there's a semicolon when it's supposed to be, you know? So I think there's something genuine about having your real voice and just kind of being confident and understanding like that's who you are. When it comes to become that speaker, I love that name because it everyone has that speaker in their head, and I'm sure when you're helping people out, you don't try to produce the same person in every single thing. So when you're working with professionals, or you're working with anyone and becoming the speaker they want to be, what are some of the things you kind of focus on to help bring it out of them?
Oh, that's a good question, David. And yes, I love it because everyone is in their own journey of becoming. And there are professionals that they're just looking for, get me over the nerves. I have to talk to people and I don't know how to get over the nerves. And there's some who's like, I know I'm good at communicating. Like every time I speak, everyone loves me, but I know I need to fine tune those skills.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're very authoritative and have a lot of depth in their expertise. And for them, it's like, how do I connect? This is what I think, but how do I connect with my audience? Because they go through the whole scientific jargon and language and business language, and I'm like, you're losing your audience here. And for me, I like to think about where they are first and get an idea of what is the path that they're trying to get to, because everyone's journey is the same. And with that, I like to highlight, okay, this is okay, I see that, I'll give you an example. I had a nurse. She's used to working one like in her on her small surgery team, and now she transitioned into a role where she's like training more incoming nurses, and she's like, ah, help me with this. Right. So it's like, what is it that you're trying to accomplish? What are your goals? What do you want? What do you see yourself, and where do you want to become? And for her, it's, I want to get over my fears. I don't, I, it was a lot of mindset
Mm.
work where she didn't think that she has valuable information, even though she's been a nurse for over 20 years. And in her role, actually, that there were more doctors relying on the information that she has. So it's really helping her to see, no, your value, the message that you have is valuable. Let's help you to frame it in a way that is clear to the doctors. Because if you're a doctor, you don't want, you see a patient, right? Imagine this with me. You have a patient and a doctor comes to you and it's like, what's wrong? You don't want to tell them every single detail. Well, it looks like they couldn't open up their eyes, but then they were breathing. And then I told them and I checked their pulse. And then they had this conversation with me. The doctor doesn't want to know all the details. He wants to know what's important so that he
Mhm.
could operate in and take the next step that he needs to take. And so helping her to understand what that doctor needs, and then how to frame her communication, and then encourage her along the journey to get her over the fear. So everyone is a little bit different, and having an idea of where they are in the journey is helpful. And it differs from everyday professionals. Most of them are, I'm in a new role that requires me to speak to people. Some of them are really versed. They're already on the stage. They're already connecting with people, and they want to fine tune the way that they deliver. And so what I like to do is kind of think like I'll hear what I like to listen to where they are and where they want to be, and also observe what I'm seeing and letting them know, here are your strong points. Here are your strong suits. Here's what you're doing well already. Let's help you work on presence. That's usually a huge area that an everyday person who hasn't been polished in their communication skills, that's where they'll need to work on. So their posture, how they show up, their voice and projection, their tones. There's another part where it's on content, like the way the information that they share and how to share it with their audience to connect with them in a more, to have a more significant impact. Some of it is you're really great at presence. Let's help you fine tune and tweak the way that you deliver so that you have a longer lasting impact. Because at the end of the day, we all can talk, we all can share, but what I think coming back to what do you want at the end of the day? That person listened to you, you shared all this great information. What's the impact that you want them to have? Do you want them to do something now that they listen to you? Do you want them to rethink about how they evaluate a particular behavior, or how they should show up in a different whenever this particular situation shows up? It's really coming back to, okay, now that they heard you, then what? And allowing that to create the impact that they need to have long after the person heard the message.
Love it. Now you said presence, kind of where they're at now. When you're working with all these people, what are some of the more common fears, I guess, that they're facing when they're coming to you? Because I'm sure you're working with different people, but I'm sure you're seeing some kind of like
Sure.
correlation, between all of them. What are some of them so the parents can know some maybe things to touch on and work with their kids on that you're seeing that's very common with people that are coming to you for help?
I think the biggest one, David, it sounds very simple, is that they don't trust what that they could share the mess, like they are the person that they provide valuable insight. Like they don't
Mhm.
trust that. Like even though they have the expertise, even though they are doing the thing, there's hesitation. There's hesitation in who they are, how they're naturally wired and gifted, even when others have affirmed that in themselves. For example, I was talking recently with a gentleman. He, in my mind, is a master storyteller. He's brilliant in the way that he thinks up from the title all the way the way in which he delivers his stories. It's one of those things that if he's on the agenda, like you want to listen to him, you want to tune in, you want to lean in. And he keeps saying, are people really thinking that I'm a good storyteller? And I'm like, yes. He's like, I know how people respond, but like, I don't see myself that way. He's like, you just said something about me that I never thought of myself as. I was like, what's that? It's like, you're humorous. I was like, people laugh every time you talk. Do you not see that? So I think one of the biggest thing is them really trusting and seeing that they are gifted in the way that they are, or their message, like they are the right person who to deliver that message, and they have the knowledge and the expertise that they need to do that. The other part, I think it's in their natural wiring, and I touched a little bit about that just now. Some of them are confident speakers. I was talking to a lady. She has a organization where she is on panels. She's talking and she's like, look, I was on this panel. I said this, but now that I'm with other experts on the panelists, I started to doubt my own message and who I am and how I deliver it. I'm like, no, girl, you the thing. Like, I'm listening to you and you carry your own weight. You don't need to validate or over explain anything that you say to prove that you're good or you know what you're talking about or you're the person that you're the right person to deliver that message. I think those are the two biggest things that I see just working
Okay.
with individuals that tend to pop up all the time. I think the other part is them believing that they can become that person that they think that they can become. It's like, I want to talk like you. I was like, no, be better than that. Like you're already great in this way, and you're different in this way than I am. And the more you work on you, like you and I might be you might be better than me. But for them to really believe that vision of who they can become, I think it's also part of the hindrance. So the more you work on the skill, it's important to believe that you are the messenger of whatever information that you carry. Yes, learning how to deliver it in a way that's palatable and impressionable it helps. But if you don't believe in you and what you carry and your potential to become better, you're going to be your own hindrance. You're going to be your own hindrance.
Without a doubt. Now, since you're in, I think you're the perfect person to touch on this because you're working with professionals in it. A big part of communication for me is being able to resolve conflicts. You know what I mean? And whether it's for me dealing with an unhappy customer, talking to an employee, to talking to a customer who's you're trying to sell. You know what I mean? There's going to be different conflicts that you're going to have to kind of talk through. What can you say to when it comes to resolving conflicts, your communication? You think you should be like super authoritative and, kind of telling them what to do? Do you think you should be more timid? Like, how would you go about in a professional setting resolving conflict with an individual all the way up to a boss or an employee?
Absolutely. I would come back to the part of dealing with people, right?
Mm.
Because once you understand you're dealing with a person, then you know how to take the steps to connect with them. And when you have conflict or differences, there's a possibility that emotions might arise. There might be frustration, there might be anger, there might be maybe other underlying triggers that has nothing to do with you. But here you are in this moment and you have to connect with them. One of the best things you could do is to remain calm, cool, collective. It's very hard for someone who's irritated, agitated to remain that way if you're calm, cool, collective, right? You can think about it as a late night radio DJ. Here's a low voice. I mean, I'm not telling you to speak like this, but think about that really rested, calm voice. And you want to
Yep.
talk versus like, oh, you really think so? Huh? It's just you have different impressions that you're gonna get. So thinking about maintaining that steady, calm voice and tone will help in those moments of negotiating or dealing with a conflict. The other thing is to try to connect and see what it is that person is seeing or feeling or identifying. So being empathetic and asking questions. Oh, interesting. Tell me more. What is the point that you have to be, what is it that you're seeing? And that way it allows them to feel like I have safety sharing my point of view and it's not necessarily one-sided. And then also creating space for you to share your viewpoint without attacking the person, but focusing on the issue in and of itself. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, you're so slow. No, it'd be like, it seems like we have this deadline that we're working towards and we're not getting there. Help me understand what are some of the challenges that you're encountering, and maybe we could come up with a new resolution. So you're inviting them to hear their perspective. You're inviting collaboration in the resolution, and you're keeping it focused on this is the problem that we need to solve. Having that calm, cool, collective voice is helpful. Understanding that there are people and pacifying that anger with chill, and then thinking about coming back to the problem and resolution. And here's the thing, not everyone is going to respond the way that you want them to respond. And at the end of the day, you might still have a disagreement.
Mhm.
But who do you want to be in that moment when you communicate? I want to be that person who is empathetic. I want to be that person who's calm, cool, collective. I want to be that person who tried to create a bridge to whatever that problem is. And if that person, you can only control your own self and what you produce and what you share. That other person doesn't want to meet you there, it's okay to walk away and say, you know what, I think we have a disagreement, but if you want to come back to the table, we could come back to it, but I'll need to make this decision or I'll need to proceed this way. But really maintaining even yourself and composure in that moment is important.
No, and that reminds me, I had a coach on in one of the colleges I played for, and shout out Coach Brown. And he had something called the pillow test, which meant like no matter what situation you came across during the day, if you handle it and you lay down at night and you don't have a second thought of, oh, I shouldn't have said that, or oh, I shouldn't have done that, you know what I mean? You should be able to lay down at night every night and like, okay, I handled it the best I can. The other person, they're laying down on the pillow. Let them be the one that's going to be like, oh, wow, I wish I didn't say that. Or, oh, man, you know what I mean? I shouldn't have acted like that. Have it to where you can lay down every night and know you did everything you could. And after that, it's out of your hands, you know?
Yes.
On
I
your
like
David,
that.
I had another question.
jump
I
in,
keep
girl.
interrupting you.
No,
He
jump
told me to
in.
interrupt, so I'm doing
You're
it.
you're jumping in. You're not
Yeah,
interrupting.
she's
Okay,
exactly.
I'm
You're
jumping
adding.
in.
You're not disrupting.
Okay. I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit more. You had said about how people can present and deliver content better. Would you mind defining that? And then also how people can deliver content with competence?
Sure. I think it comes back to the outcome that you want, who you're talking to, what's the main message. And so let's say, perfect example, I was talking with a marketing professional and he's like, I don't understand why a lot of people aren't into soccer. I want to create material to make people more interested in soccer. And I thought, okay, now what would be better? Let's say we're at a car lot, at a car show, a car lot, and you're trying to sell a minivan and you want to try, and you're trying to sell a sports car. People who are choosing a sports car are choosing a sports car for a reason. People who are choosing minivans are choosing a minivan for a reason. Now, minivans are very multifunctional. They could do a lot of things and hold a lot of people and hold a lot of information and hold a lot of cargo and carry more things than a sports car can. But would it make sense to try to get the person who's in their mind set on getting the sports car to, hey, you should look at this other vehicle. We have you could do this with it. You could carry more stuff with it. It has all these cool features. You can't get that in a sports car. How much work you would have to do to get that person who's already set on getting a sports car to buy the minivan, or even vice versa.
Mhm.
And I think that has a lot to do with, well, who are you speaking to, right? So perhaps a young, cool executive who is in a very flashy city like Miami
Yeah, you need a
wants to
sports car.
be make a great impression on their clients, might want the sports car and not the minivan.
Mhm.
And so understanding who you're ultimately talking to so that you could frame your message to connect with them is one of the ways that you can make your content better. Oftentimes people think like this guy is like, I'm gonna give everyone more material on soccer. Let's focus on soccer when people don't have a natural interest in soccer, or else they would. But who are the people who would tend to have interest in soccer? Maybe they grew up following certain teams, maybe they went to certain varsity. And then those are the individuals you could target more to
Yeah.
focus, maybe not necessarily on soccer because you already have the interest, but maybe purchase merchandise or meet up in certain organization or events that are targeted already to something that they're interested in. So I think a huge part is your audience knowing who it is that you're talking, like tailoring that message to connect with the things that they're already interested in. And
Mhm.
then also your purpose, having a purpose in mind. If your purpose is to make more money, then you need to make sure that your message is consistently doing that in a way that ultimately leads to that. Now, I'm not saying bombard them with oh money, 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 right? But the way you package your message should be doing that. And I like to start like when I work with different professionals, I like to start with the end in mind because they have one goal. And then when I go through their material, it's like your goal isn't landing where you say you want it. So how
Mhm.
let's start reworking that to get the impact that you're looking for.
Yeah.
I think those are some of the ways that individuals could focus on and how to improve their content.
That's great. And what it made me think of is sort of like practicing self-awareness. But when you talked about knowing your audience and not sharing things that would upset your audience or sharing things that would please your audience, I really, really like that. That was great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You know who do a good job at this? Comedians.
Mm.
When they're on
Mm-hmm.
tour, they're in different cities, they learn different things about different cities
Mm-hmm.
so that they connect with the people in different cities and that they tweak their jokes so that it could land better with the different groups of people that they're connecting with.
Yeah, that's
That's
great.
it's good.
Great analogy.
Yes.
No, and I forget where it was, but I've read something that like comedians are some of the best communicators because they know how to tailor their message depending on who they're speaking to. So that's crazy you said that. Now on your website you have something called the MAPS method. Could you kind of just give us a little overview of what that is?
Back in the day when people use maps, they had like four coordinates, right? You have north, south, west, and east. These days we just pop the GPS and say this is where we're trying to get to. And the GPS says left, right, turn.
Yep.
But think about your map as the sweet spot that you want to get to in your communication, where you look at M, the main message, like what is the main thing ultimately that you want to get to? This will help individuals fine tune the ultimate message that they're trying to communicate. No matter all the things they say, what's your main message? Let's focus on that. The A stands for your audience. We talked a little bit about that, tweaking your message to connect with them. The P is your purpose. And then your S is how do you go about structuring your speech so that it gives you the impact. So I like to, that's part of the templated framework I liked to focus on so that we can make sure that whatever we talk about, whatever we communicate, it hits that sweet spot to get in
Mhm.
that ballpark. If not, it's almost like saying, if you just go up the road in that direction, you're gonna get to this spot. And the likelihood of you getting there directionally, ballpark, you're somewhere there, but you're not in the sweet spot. And I think those are the areas that people tend to miss in being able to connect with their audience and provide clarity in their message in a way that connects with them, for sure.
No, I love that. And I'm a sucker for, I think they're called acronyms. I think that's what it is. And that's a great one. That's an absolutely, because like you said, it touches on all the points and it's super simple and maps. I mean, how do you forget that? So that's great.
Yeah, if you
Uh,
don't have it, then your message sounds like spam, it's so backwards, spam.
that's true. I like that. Wow. Okay. Um, Now when it comes to a homeschooler who, let's say, they're going off to college maybe for their first semester. You know, they were homeschooled their whole life, and they're going to be totally immersed into a new environment. They're going to be surrounded by a bunch of new people. What are some things I know you touched on, like being yourself, but when it comes into going into new environments that you're maybe uncertain how it's going to be, you know, you can't research everyone in the college before you kind of you can go. What are some things they can do that's going to set them up to where they can kind of go into that situation and still flourish?
Absolutely. I think it's good to keep in mind that that's a scenario that you will continue to have play out in your life.
Mm.
So college is one of those areas. It might be a new organization. Let's say you're interested in a local basketball team. You don't know some of the individuals. It could be you traveling to a new city and you meet people along the way, or you at a new company. That scenario continue to plays out wherever you go. And with that, there's always that possibility of people not agreeing with you, people thinking that you're odd and weird, people not liking you, but also people gravitating towards you, people who find similar interests with you, people who are wanting you to be in their environment and space. And so when you go into college, I know that's a really challenging environment because there's a sense of belonging and wanting to find your group or tribe and people that you connect with. And sometimes that process could be very rocky and unpleasant. But know that there are people out there who would love to meet you and people who want to connect with you and want to hang out with you. And to always have that as an anchor in your mind so that wherever space you show up, you look for the people that are in alignment with what you're looking for. And so if it's important for you when you go to college to find a group of people who are more studious and more focused on getting their work done, you could find them, right? And think about, okay, where would they hang out? What would they be up to? What would they be doing? And look for those individuals. If you want to find someone who's interested in a similar sport or activity with you, think about who, like, where would they be hanging out? What would be doing? And then being curious to learn about people who may be different from you and might have a different perspective and might be nonetheless interesting still. And creating that opportunity to ask questions to get to know them and find that commonality between you both so that you can maintain that connection through trust. There might be some instances where you might go to classes that you don't agree with some of the things that the professors say, or you may have a different way about going about coming to that conclusion or solution, and your viewpoint might be in a minority. I think that's where it's important for you to take a step back and be anchored in the values and beliefs that you have. And it's okay if it changes. If you used to think, oh, I used to think this, but now my mindset has been open to think about something different. It's okay to change your opinion on that. But with that said, I think it's important to be very grounded in your values, the things that are important to you, even when you're in an environment where others have different values and different opinions. And you might feel like you're in a minority sometimes in that way, but it's okay. And knowing that you're not the only person in the world that has those viewpoints or like certain things. Maybe you might be like, I love nature, but everyone thinks it's weird. Love nature. Go find the people who love nature with you. It's okay. So I think that's important for you to not just only think about college, but throughout your entire life. There were moments in my career where people was like, oh my goodness, you don't have to do the right thing all the time. You don't have to be like perfect. And I was like, I'm not trying to be right and perfect. These are just my values and this is where I stand. And it's okay if we differ.
Yep.
And that wasn't even in college. This was like way past college. That's the conversation that was still happening. It is tough in this phase of your life because community and belonging and friendship and companionship is so important. But what's more important is knowing the things that are important to you, even though you know you love it, and being okay with being with other people who differ in that way.
I love that. I love that. Now, we're kind of closing in on an hour here, so I want to make sure I ask you, if you don't have any, it's totally cool, but did you have any books that kind of helped you develop as a communicator, or any kind of podcast or anything like that where the parents, if they want to kind of help their kids get better, especially at the high school age, um, that could maybe help them, whether it's a book, a podcast, or anything along those lines?
Hey, I love books. I love books because I love to learn and I love to grow. And I've always have a natural interest in books that touches on communication and connection. Because you deal with people every day. And the more I learn that way, I was like, ooh, so I need to tweak this way and learn to do that way. Some of them I have kind of behind me right now, I think. So Pitch Perfect is a really good one. Let me see if I can pull that one. This is a really good book on, it covers a lot of presentations, communication, but how to frame your sentences and words in a way that connects with people quickly.
Mm.
It's just a cool, ooh, this is all good stuff. It's like the little things. It talks about body language, all that fun stuff. And then, well, let me see. Oh, we talk about conflict earlier. Crucial Conversations.
Heard about that one. I've heard nothing but good reviews with that one. Yes.
Okay, look, David, this like because when you get this is what makes you stand out as a leader. How do you deal with high stake moments, right? How do you handle pressure? How do you deal with it? A lot of people flake. A lot of people freak out and panic. This helps you stick to the solutions, stick to the outcome that you're trying to get, even when things are tough. And it will help you out throughout all of life when you find yourself in those situations, even if it's personal. This is a good book for leaders in general. Another book I like is Never Split the Difference.
Uh,
It's a great negotiation book. And it
that's
really,
that's the one that's written by the FBI agent, right?
yeah, Chris
Yeah.
Voss.
Yes, yes.
He's a negotiator. And I think this deals a lot with human psyche and psychology. And so, I mean, at some point, you're going to negotiate your salary and negotiate your rent and negotiate a lot of things in life. Learn the skills quickly. This is a good book to have. You will come back to this, write notes. There are things that I'm like, I keep telling people, get the book, read that chapter again. This is what you need to apply. This is the part you need to apply. Let me see. What else do I have? There's a book on boundaries.
Oh, yes, I have that one. Yes.
This is just great for maintaining your values and what you think and what's important to you. I will tell you, I was working with someone who I said, look, you need to, and she was more on an accounting side. I said, look, this is the kind of client that will suck your time and pull you completely in. And you need to
Mm.
be able to communicate, hey, I'd love to be able to do this right now. Can we have the language to protect yourself? Boundaries is to help you protect your values. Otherwise, people will come through your life and tell you to do this, tell you to do that. And if you don't have those safeguards to keep your sanity and peace, they'll drain you out. They'll drain you out. So those are some books I could think off top of my head, off the top
Love it.
shelf, that are great communication books. And I have more. I definitely do. I have like an Amazon list full of different books on there that you could pick out and click on. And if you go on any of my platforms of social media, you'll find a list there. But yeah, those are books that I'm always reading. And so if there's ones that you like, Ruth, have you ever read this? You should try that. Please reach out and let me know. I'll definitely look into it.
I love it. Now, if you could, say a parent's kind of interested in what you're doing, could you just tell them like where they can find you, your social medias, your website, and then maybe leave us with like a final word for the parents who are trying to help their kids develop as communicators?
Absolutely. My website is www.becomethatspeaker.com. I'm on YouTube, although I haven't put out full content. It'll be coming out later this year.
Okay.
But YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, Become That Speaker. You can find content I share weekly to help you build confidence, working your presentation skills, and develop the leadership language that will help you succeed in the workplace or anywhere that you show up as a leader. On my website, you could also find a free copy of a blueprint that you could print out. It's available for you to start looking at ways that you want to improve your presentation skills. It's not as something that you could like you can't focus on all of them at the same time, but you could take your time, pick a couple of them, work on them. Or if you have a presentation, you could give someone the list and be like, can you point out the ones that I need to work on and what I did well? It's just a great resource to help you fine-tune your skills. These are some of the things that I've noticed a lot of individuals tend to overlook when they're presenting. And it's something the more you work on, you could easily set yourself apart from others.
Love.
And I want to say congratulations for investing in your children in this way. Communication skills, I find, is an area that's crucial for your whole entire life because we deal with people every day. And the more that we as individuals develop our communication skills, the better relationships we have in the world. And if you equip your children now, as they get to a point where they have the expertise, they have the knowledge in whatever field that they choose, they've already set themselves apart because they know how to speak as a leader, where others are waiting until that point in that transition in their career to think, oh my goodness, I have to work with people now. I gotta do something about it now. So I'm proud of you guys for being intentional in that way and really thinking about rounding out your education in areas that sometimes are not covered in school, like communication, in the way that it should be.
Without a doubt. Well, Miss Ruth, thank you so much. When you do drop
Yes.
those YouTube contents, let us know and we'll promote them on our end to help you out there.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure, man. I've enjoyed this conversation. This hour has absolutely flown by for me. Thank you again for coming on.
Yes,
Thank you,
thank you so
Matt.
much.
Thank you, David. It was a pleasure. Looking forward to continue the connection and the relationship with you guys.
Yes, ma'am. We're only like an hour away from each other, so we're right
Yes.
there. All righty, miss. Have a good one.
Have a better one.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.